Ladies and gentlemen, in this Red Gaming Tedacon video, we're going to be discussing the Xbox Scorpio and recent claims by Aaron Greenberg that we will indeed be seeing a true 4K experience with the new system. I'm going to read out a series of quotes first before I decide to give my 2 cents on the subject, and this is thanks to an interview with DualShockers. I'm going to begin. We were really thoughtful about the specs we used to design Project Scorpio, and the focus was on how we can deliver true 4K gaming in the console space. Today's 4K gaming exists on a PC, with people who spend a lot of money on high-end PCs with a variety of specs. Thousands of dollars in many cases can get you 4K gaming, but it hasn't existed in the console market. How we can bring that to a scale of really big audience in the console space is what I'm really excited about. To bring 6 teraflops of GPU power to the console space is a massive amount of power. We're confident that we'll be able to deliver true 4K gaming with that, and that performance power is going to bring great games to our fans in the console market. A lot of our developers are building on those games today, are already doing 4K on the PC. Our internal studios, we've got Forza Horizon 3, Halo Wars 2, Gears of War 4, all being built as graphical showcases on the PC, so that work is already existing, but the performance power is not there yet in the console space, and we'll obviously be bringing that next year, which is, out of quote, of course, the touted release date for the Scorpio. And there are a couple of things I want to add to this. First of all, let's be honest, the system's not out yet, so any analysis I provide is, at the end of the day, speculation. Now, if you were to take the thousands of dollars, I guess it depends on the level of PC you're going for. For example, you could buy a GTX 1070 and technically you could play it 4K. And you could also go with a GTX 1080. Or there are other solutions as well. You could perhaps go used if you really wanted to. But a single card can definitely power a 4K experience. You will definitely need some concessions in terms of frame rate. You could check out our GTX 1070 video, smoothly added in, which will give you an idea of what 4K performance can be like on a GPU which doesn't break the bank, although it's still fairly expensive. You're looking at around 400 Great British pounds or equivalent in your regional currency. So, thousands of dollars, I would say not for a basic 4K machine, but really it comes down to your personal tolerance in what you feel is acceptable. For the sake of argument, if you are someone who's looking at 4K 60 FPS or nothing with absolute highest graphical settings, then really you're going to need a dual GPU configuration at minimum. And obviously in those instances you're going to be looking at essentially your left kidney. But my concern is that I kind of feel he's using a lot of PR speak. Now, really it comes down to rendering methods and also the performance / level of detail of the console iteration compared to the PC iteration. I'll give you a for instance. Let's talk about performance of the GPU. With traditional rendering methods, if you were to run 1080p compared to 4K, it's quite literally 4 times the amount of work for the GPU to render 4K image compared to 1080p. If you don't believe me, you can start doing the calculations yourself. You can simply do 1920 by 1080 equals number of pixels, and then you can do the same for 4K, and you will come up with the number of pixels, and then you can divide it by 4, and, well, Bob's your uncle. But there are certain rendering methods which are becoming more popularized thanks to developers and what they're doing. Some of this has been already pretty well established, but like anything in graphics technology over the years, it slowly evolves and they start learning more and more. Obviously we've talked at length before about Ubisoft and their tile-based rendering, but that is not particularly new. Sony have been using it for the PS4K, and I suspect it's going to be pretty regular for future console titles as well. It also comes down to how the developers themselves opt to utilize that performance. At the end of the day, yeah, they could once again go and push for 4K, but as Phil Spencer and others at Microsoft have said, they can deliver a true 4K experience, but really they want to empower the developers. So what that basically means, if you cut through the jargon, it really is to the developers to decide how that performance is, well, used. And it's going to be really interesting to see what the differences are on, let's say, a game which is going to be released across both platforms, the PS4 Neo and the Scorpio. And yes, I'm aware both systems are backwardly compatible, but for the sake of this video, I just want to say Neo and Scorpio because I think it draws an interesting point of comparison. So what I mean by that is, are there going to be native differences in the frame rate, or are we going to see the Scorpio version perhaps run at the same resolution as the Scorpio, as the Neo, despite the fact that it's got extra graphical grunt, but run perhaps at a slightly higher frame rate? Or are we going to see differences on level of detail? Are we going to see differences in, let's say, anti-aliasing methods? Are we going to see perhaps better draw distance? And really, it comes down to how the developers opt to use it. Just 30 to 60 FPS quite literally halves the amount of time the system has to draw each frame of animation, and that's ultimately what it does with traditional rendering methods. Now, once again, you can certainly start doing deferred rendering, or you could start doing temporal reproduction, which can save quite a lot of GPU performance, system performance, and some of this, like the new tiled rendering, essentially uses very similar techniques, drawing from the details of the previous frame. And we've seen this greatly used with Killzone Shadowfall, and you might remember that was the basis of Sony being sued, actually, with the claims of the Killzone Shadowfall not running at native 1080p, and it was a whole thing. Personally speaking, I'm not that fussed about true 4K gaming on a console, because I don't have that level of expectation on a system which really isn't going to be that expensive in comparison to a high-end PC. Now, for example, the GPU in the Scorpio is about the same performance as an RX 480. I say about because it's ever so slightly faster, but you could pretty easily accomplish it by just running the RX 480 at a very, very mild overclock, around 1300 MHz, which is about 40 MHz additional. What that means is that that's a mid-range PC part right now. It was high to mid-range in the previous generation, now it's about mid-range. But the RX 480, don't get me wrong, is still a really fast card. It can pretty much crush anything that's in one of our test rigs at the moment, and it basically destroys most games, like anything from Shadow of Mordor, Street Fighter V, Crysis, Metro, Far Cry. I'm just listing a whole bunch of games. I can't really think of graphically intensive ones. Doom, Doom's running really beautifully at 1440p. It runs absolutely amazingly. So I'm willing to admit that we'll probably see certain games run at 4K. However, I imagine genuinely and generally that developers will need to make some concessions, and they'll probably decide to run 4K at 30, or perhaps at a lower frame buffer, but at higher level of detail, or perhaps at better, frame rate or whatever. And this is really down to the PlayStation VR and Neo as well. Neo, the developers need to make some decisions, because obviously it's not as powerful as Scorpio, that's been confirmed. So unless we can see a hefty upclock in performance from Neo, we're going to be looking at a gulf in performance. Either way, from a personal standpoint, I'm quite happy. And talking about PC to Xbox for a moment, because ultimately that's where Aaron here is focused, it actually works really well for both platforms. Because, for instance, if you have a game which is already well optimized for console 4K, it really means that we should have, in theory, higher quality assets for the PC, and vice versa. Theoretically, high resolution textures should already be there for developers to use. And honestly, we can argue all day long about the semantics of it probably won't be all games that run at 4K, or there are going to be concessions made, but I am actually really happy with both the Neo and Scorpio. I'm actually not fully sold on it yet, because, and this is the important part, they need to show me why I want to buy the systems. especially as a high-end console owner, high-end PC owner myself, who owns an Xbox original, who owns a PlayStation 4 original, and with the NX and other things coming out, why would I want to upgrade? But it's going to be very interesting to see how this works, especially with other comments when they've said this is probably the end of traditional console generations. How is that going to actually work in reality? Are we going to get this cut-off period where the original Xbox is no longer able to support certain games and only the Scorpio onwards will? Well, your guess is as good as mine, unfortunately. And honestly, I have a feeling that Sony, Microsoft, they probably don't know the answers either. But I'll tell you one thing, it's going to be really interesting. And I, for one, am looking forward to high-quality gaming graphics on console. And why personally I am a PC fan, primarily, I love the idea of console gamers having the option of being able to have high-resolution gaming or high-quality gaming, because ultimately it's down to you if you want to spend the money. Anyway, hopefully you've enjoyed the video. I'll see you soon. Take care. Bye for now.